away. Ifatu Melifonwu. This is going to be over. Lions are going to win it. Lions are bringing the NFC North title back to Detroit.
All right, I think we made it. Welcome to the Positive Detroit Lions Show, your Rock Down Detroit Lions podcast, brought to you by Rock Down Podcast Network. How's everybody doing tonight? Yeah, Deck Pack, the last one it disappeared. Don't know what happened. The previous stream, I was in it, and then I was out of it. So I don't get it. Sometimes it happens. It could just be Streamlabs having difficulty, but it was still in YouTube. It just wasn't in Streamlabs anymore. Weird stuff. But anyway, it's good to be back. A couple of days off. We're going to be getting out to this, grind and rise and grind, if you will, daily, man. It's going to pick up quick, and it's not going to stop. So today, just so you guys are aware, we got a new mic. If there's any issues with the sound, just let me know. It's going to take a second to dial it in. Obviously, your input is helpful. Appreciate you guys all joining in tonight. So let me welcome in the chat. Got Tracy moderating tonight, Kobe Stacy, King SJ by way of Toronto. Is that still you? We got Decker Peck, Lone Wolf, Braylon Dennis in the house, Bruce Morton, Sports Talk with Rob, mile marker 301, Greg Warner, Dan Perry, James. All right, we're good. We got a light crew tonight, but you know what? It's the loyalty crew. And then that's why the loyalty crew hotline will be open about 8:30. Well, maybe 8:45 now that we're running a little bit behind, but we'll get it open. You guys can air your grievances or your positivity tonight. It's all about positivity because Jared Goff had some things to say. And I just dropped a video, which is weird. I don't know why I scheduled it at the same time that I was going live, but it's probably going to drop here in the next few minutes. And it's all about what Jared Goff just spoke about in this podcast and a little bit of a hint about his contract is in that video. So I don't know if I'll spill the beans tonight, which is literally part of the topic of Jared spilling the beans on this podcast, or did he? That'll be the question that will be answered soon when he gets his new deal. If he gets his new deal, when he gets his new deal, it's coming. It's coming. And you know what? I'll just tell you, it sounds like it's going to be a long time that Jared's going to be here. And in his gripe in this podcast that he was on, which is a couple of his buddies from Cal days in Berkeley, and an excellent podcast. Like, these guys knocked it completely out the park. They were invited into Jared's home in LA, and just a very cool, calm, collected type of podcast. You could tell a couple of LA guys just kicking back, doing their thing with Jared. Really good show. And a lot of great things spoken to and about. And that's what some of tonight's topics are going to be about. Is Jared Goff is not your underdog story. And he wants Lions fans to understand these Detroit Lions are no longer an underdog. They don't deserve to be called an underdog anymore. Now, sports betting, they're going to do what they do. You're always going to have someone that is ranked higher than the other for sports betting. But what he's talking about is the media and how the media, first we've heard some things about fans over the past month or so from some of the former players. CJ Gardner says we're quick to turn our backs. He kind of does the same thing. There was a report that came out of Josh Reynolds' camp by way of Jeff Risdon that said, that the fans were kind of toxic. You guys saw that video. Didn't go over well with a lot of people. And now the media side. And the thing that they were talking about in the very beginning of this conversation, how it got started, was there was a local insider that has been with the team for a while now. Beat writer's been with the team for a while. And he was kind of throwing shade, kind of maybe, towards the Lions during the NFC title game. And was talking about San Francisco's all pros and their great, roster, and nothing about the Lions. And I'm sure you guys remember that conversation well with Jared Goff, where he's like, well, what about us? We got Penei Sewell, we got Amon-Ra St. Brown, we got Sam Laporta, we got all these guys. What about all of our all pros? And so that's what he was talking about. And that's how this conversation got started tonight. And I thought it was not only humbling to a lot of things that I heard Jared Goff speak to today in this show, but enlightening. So without further ado, let's kind of kick it off a little bit and talk about it. Let's have a conversation about it. First and foremost, what I'd like to start off with is Jared Goff is a new leader in his 4th season in Detroit. And we've watched him kind of blossom and bloom, if you will, as a leader. He came in, under a ton of stress, right? Just got kicked out of LA. The news media went wild. Goff is thrown under the bus. Everyone said he was a bust and a loser and this, that, and the other thing. There was very few of us, me being one of them, that didn't feel that way. I thought that this was a great pickup. Couldn't have been a better option for the Detroit Lions to trade away, an excellent quarterback, but also bring in a very young, already proven quarterback. He's proven that he could get there. And now he gets to start fresh with a new team and rebuild it the right way. And that's what they're doing. And we had no clue back in 2021 that Brad Holmes was actually going to build it the right way. We were hoping, because, the hopium is alive and well in Detroit, especially with that new sign in Detroit that I think a lot of people are a little underwhelmed with, but there was hopium there. It just didn't inflate large enough. Those letters are a little bit small. So anyway, new leader in Detroit. And look, he's got this new fire in his belly is kind of what he speaks to. And leading by example is kind of how he's always done it. Mouth shut, eyes wide open, does it. What he's doing on the field is just as important as what he's doing off the field. And to his credit, one of the statements that he made is, who are you when nobody's looking? What are you doing when nobody's looking? It's like when the cat's away, the mice will play kind of, statement, right? So when the boss is away, what are you doing? Are you on your phone texting? Are you still doing work? Are you chatting it up with your, coworker? Are you, just kind of dicking around, if you will? Or are you getting the work done? And Jared gets the work done. And that's how he leads by example. He continues to put in the work day in and day out, whether it's in front of Dan Campbell or away from Dan Campbell. He's the same dude. And I think that we've seen that through, this playoffs, that we went through. Like, the guy was just cool, calm, collected, always on beat, always on task. Nothing was too big for him. And that's a leader. That is someone that we need in Detroit. I don't care how big his contract is. That is who we need. It is so hard to find people like that. And I'm sure all of you guys know that in the chat too, just how hard it is to find good people. I mean, whether you're at work and you're working with someone that's just not picking up their weight, they're not pulling their fair share, so to speak, and you've got to do 2 or 3 or 4 times the work, but you probably keep your mouth shut. You don't say anything. You get it done because you don't want it to look bad on you, because if the project fails or if the job doesn't get done, it's going to look bad on you too. So to find good quality people is hard. And Jared is as good of quality as they come. So going through all these growing pains in Detroit is what really changed Jared and helped him reshape, remold, reset his life and his future, put his own 2 pillars in the ground and start to build, what he was going to become for the next chapter of his life, which was finishing out his contract and then hopefully getting a new one. But he has now become that vocal leader. This last year, we've seen it. Jared Goff is finally starting to speak up. He's grown big time. He's matured into this new role. And in his word, so his word on the mirror is what I'm going to talk about next, but the Lions bring in coaches, and I couldn't find the word in the video, but you bring in these coaches, right? And the coaches are there to develop you and develop these guys to get the best out of them. So what they do in their own life, they can also do on the field. And that's where Jared has really grown, is he put this word called consistent on the mirror. He wanted to be consistent and learn what it meant, to be consistent. And, what would you reap from being consistent? My 2 words in my Twitter bio is persistently consistent. It's something that I've always tried to live through. This podcast is an example. Cancer or no cancer, I show up. Feeling like crap, I show up. Some days I haven't shown up for whatever various reason, but very few when you look at how many times I'm on air or putting out videos. It's like 70 times a month. So that takes persistently, to be persistently consistent. Jared is going through the same thing. So this coach of his through the Lions, and then a personal guy that he had met when he was actually getting let go from the Rams, Dr. Michael Gervais, has also helped shape and reframe, kind of who Jared is. So all of these things, all of these intangibles, all of these qualities that make up our quarterback is part of the biggest reason why we're having so much success, because he's implementing all of this and how to get better and how to be a better player, a better person on and off the field. And that spills into the locker room. It leaks to the locker next to you, and then to the locker next to him, and the locker down 3 or 4 down. It just continues to spill. And Jared is really, he feels empowered by doing all of this, because Dan Campbell really embraced Jared's growth and for him to find his own way in Detroit. And what that meant was he was going to be forced to fail to be able to thrive. And all of this is what Jared's speaking about in this podcast. How, there's even a book, that he was talking about that was part of this journey. But failing to thrive is pretty powerful when you think about it. And I've spoken about that. Sometimes you have to fail to succeed, and it doesn't matter how many times you fail, how many times you get knocked down. It's how many times you get up, right? We've always heard that. But this has turned, out to become a new leader for Jared. And he speaks highly about Dan Campbell and the way that Dan Campbell coaches, the way that, he empowers players, the way that he leads, this team, and how special it is and how special that relationship is. So what is all this opening monologue, if you will, what does it really mean? It's the Lions are different. The brand new Lions are honestly different. This is a different team. It's a different culture. It's truly the identity that they've been looking for when they set out to do this. This is who they wanted to be. A team of leaders, a team of passionate men that cared about their job, that cared about each other, that they wanted to go out there and fight for one another to deliver a good product for the city of Detroit and its fans around the world. And I think that they've done it. And I think they've done an excellent job. So, yeah, it's kind of a lot, man. It's kind of a lot when you take it all in and you think about the journey that he's been through. And then if you even inject some of your own life into it and the journeys that you've gone through, there's just things that, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I pull some things out of it. But the book that he mentioned called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. I do know this book. I've read this book. It's really good, or I listened to it at least. Really, really good. Highly recommended. And of course, now that he's said it publicly, 2 things. 1, the book, and 2, Dr. Michael Gervais. He's never said that publicly, that he's gone through that transformation, having these meetings and one-on-ones and whatnot. So pretty powerful stuff. But here's the quote. So this is the quote that speaks to potentially Jared Goff remaining in Detroit for a very long time. He said this. He said, and he was talking about the media. So let me frame it real quick. He was talking about the media and how there's this negativity within the media, and the whole construct behind it, is just feeding that negative energy where, you'd rather be positive, right? You got to have that positivity. And we finally have kind of beaten that old SOL into the ground, if you will. Everything that they've done for 3 seasons, finally, the cream is rising to the top and the team is finally successful. And we've got all of these great things behind us now. he said this. He says, I have like this and I need to drop it soon. So I think what he's trying to say there is I have like this thing, this gripe, this deal, whatever. He says, I need to drop it soon here because I'm going to hopefully be in Detroit for a long time. But I have this thing with our local media where they almost relish in negativity at times. And maybe that's what gets clicks and that's what sells. But it's no longer what they need to live in. Hey guys, we have a good team. We've had success. We can be happy about that. We can celebrate that and not have to write about how we're constantly the underdog. No, teams are gonna be gunning for us now. We've won the division. I'm probably overthinking it in my head just because it's the chip on my shoulder and that competitor in me. But in that moment, I was just giving that guy a hard time. And of course, he was talking about the beat writer that was kind of making a mockery of, the 49ers roster versus the Lions roster. So anyway, he says, hopefully he will be in Detroit for a long time, which tells me a couple of things. And then I'm going to bounce into the chat here. It tells me a couple of things. Number one, when you make a statement like that, it's kind of like there's a little bit of past tense in here a little bit, that maybe something's obviously, getting worked out. I mean, we've heard through multiple, media outlets and sources and that they're working on something, that their number one goal between Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell is to get Goff extended and to keep him in Detroit. That's no secret. I don't know if there's too many outlets out there that are saying that that's not going to happen or it's not on, the to-do list for 2024. But according to Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, it is. Whether it's true or not, we won't know until the ink starts to dry. And the way I took this and watching his mannerisms, just watching the whole I rewound it like 10 times. Just watching how he says it so casually, so nonchalant, like he plans on being there. He wants to be there. Maybe he wasn't so, excited about it in the beginning because it's a huge change. And the other powerful part of this podcast is talking about, you're 23, 22, 24, 25, I think is when he was traded, going through this stuff and how young, these players are. So, just having to go through it at such a young age, he probably wasn't as excited about having to be uprooted and move to Detroit, sunny LA, kind of gloomy Michigan weather. Who knows what you're going to get every other hour in Detroit. And, it's a big change for anybody moving across the country, to a team that hasn't won anything ever, or at least in a very, very long time. So very interesting podcast. I highly recommend that you guys watch it. Spend the hour and a half, watch it. And there's a bunch of good nuggets in there. So, all right, what's everybody talking about here? Mile Marker 301 says, when it comes down to it, all each of us really got is our integrity. And that's a great point. Braylon Dennis, Goff is the franchise. Man, he is. He is a phenomenal leader. And I know, look, there's a lot more exciting, flashy players out there. But here's where I'll question having that shiny, flashy player. How many of them have won a championship? How many of them have consistently gone to the playoffs? And especially dual quarterbacks or dual threat quarterbacks, extreme mobile quarterbacks. How many of them have won a championship in the last 20 years? I did this the other night, and there was, I think, 3. Obviously, if you count Patrick Mahomes as a dual threat, in his first season, when he won the Super Bowl, I would agree. But since then, not so much. He's a scrambler. He's not so much a dual threat. He's just a good scrambler. And I think there's a big defining line between dual threat and scrambler and, a scrambling pocket passer and a pure pocket passer that's not really mobile at all. Let's see here. King SJ, I love Goff's comment in the locker room after the season. You see that new banner up there? We got more of those effing things to hang or something like that. Yeah. The fallen what does that say? The fallen one. Hello, I was just watching your newest video. What did I miss? Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. Just kind of preaching about Jared Goff here for a moment. And in that video and part of the podcast, that I watched and grabbed some of that information from is what I just went over and how much Jared Goff has turned into a leader and that transformation and everything involved. Yeah, kind of a lot. You have to go back and watch it. Jack 2125 says, I'll take the stand-up guy who has his team's back over any of the egotistical, selfish players. It's a good point too. That's the thing. It's like Jared Goff had his back all day that day. Or Jared Goff had his team's back all day that day in front of the media. There's no reason why you're sitting in an NFC championship game, in a media session, and somebody has the audacity to question, that you're good enough to be there. Like, you just beat 28, other teams. Of course you deserve to be there, and there's many reasons why you deserve to be there. So I hope that he stays. If his words mean anything, it means that, a deal is going to get done. And to me, that's the most important thing. So here's the weird thing. Like, I'm looking at the YouTube on the back end, and it's still showing the intro. That is so weird. Like, something's not right with YouTube, I don't think. That's really weird. So anyway, other news. I'm exhausted. We were at the doggy ER till God knows what time this morning. Poor dog is sick, not doing well. So this could be a short one tonight because I don't have it, man. It's been one of those days. Yeah. So is that still you? Yeah, I've got that part coming up next here. So as a matter of fact, I'll go into it right now. So Goff's time with the Rams. And I found this interesting too. I didn't even think about this, but Goff's time with the Rams will be equal by the end of 2024. He wants it to be known that he wants to be somewhere long term, right? And the fact that he's talking about being somewhere long term and which could potentially mean finishing his career in Detroit. He was kind of speaking to the fact of, I played, my first 4 seasons or whatever it was in LA. And now I'm entering year 4 in Detroit, and how that, after the end of this contract, it was, while I was in this place for 3/4 of my career, and I was in this place for, a quarter of my career. So now it's a little blip on the radar, like he's trying to push the Rams like out of his sight and mind, if you will. It's kind of what I gathered from it. But it will be, here's his quote. He says, it will be after this year. It'll be the exact same time starting. I think that'll be, what does it say? I think that'll be able to make it even more sense. That makes no sense. I think that will be able to make it more. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know why that's written that way. I didn't write it. It's his quote. But what he's trying to say is you weren't even there that long, meaning it wasn't a big deal to be in LA. He says, as I grow older, hopefully I'm in Detroit for a long time. I'm able to say, okay, I was in Detroit for 2/3 or 3/4 of my career, and LA just a small part at the beginning, a part that shaped me. Anyway, good stuff. Good stuff. So next up, let's talk some pro day. I don't know if he's going to retire a Lion, Eric. I really don't. I think that really depends on how long Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes are around. I think that's the bigger question. How long do they stick around? I just don't see Jared Goff with any other head coach right now. So, I mean, it's a possibility. That's a possibility, man. So James, the link is in the description to this video. It's a podcast by, I think it's called Wilbo and the Trading Cards podcast. But there is a link in the description to this live event that you're in right now. So next up, Pro Day. The other day when the computer decided to do what it did, I tried to make a video about all the Pro Day stuff and the Lions bringing in a lot of players and what it really meant. I mean, it was a very successful day. As part of the draft process, each NFL team has what is considered a local Pro Day. So it could be, guys that maybe they don't get a lot of looks from around the league. Maybe they're in lower tiered schools. They used to play high school in the state of Michigan or in the local zone. Those guys are invited to come, so they played high school ball, then they went off somewhere else to college. But anyway, so it's often a way for these prospects to kind of get some exposure, especially with, other teams that could be interested in them. And it really gave them an opportunity to showcase, their skills that maybe haven't been seen or haven't been recognized as much as they should be. So local visits do not count against the top 30 list of prospects that are allowed to have what is more of an in-depth conversation or in-depth meeting, interview, if you will. So the local day is just a little bit different. They're still having, their one-on-ones, their meetings, but they're getting some action, on field and showing their skill set to the Detroit Lions and the Detroit Lions only. So they can have all of the scouts present, obviously Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, and the rest of, the organization. But U of M, big presence on the day in Allen Park. 6 participants making the workout. And I believe this was yesterday, right? Yesterday. So anyway, outside linebacker Jalen Harrell, offensive lineman Trevor Keegan, offensive lineman Carson Barnhart, linebacker Michael Barrett, defensive back Mike Sainristil, and wide receiver Roman Wilson. So the two that I kind of highlighted out of this were Sainristil and Wilson. Both expected to kind of go on day 2 right now. Wilson, in my opinion, though, has been pretty solid throughout this entire draft process. He's put some good tape out there, some good pro day stuff. And there is, a little bit of a question really only with Sainristil as a fit to the Lions is if, is he even a fit? Like, do we really need another Brian Branch type sized guy? Well, I shouldn't say size because Sainristil is a lot smaller, but same position. So Sainristil is probably going to play nickel, at the next level. Probably just a little bit too small to be on the outside. Now, that doesn't mean that he can't work his way to the outside if he comes in and proves that he can handle it. It's just making that transition could take 2 or 3 seasons before he really gets an opportunity to work more on the outside. So expecting to be him on the inside, I'm not really seeing how there's any clear path for a Sainristil to have an opportunity to become a Detroit Lion. Now, Roman Wilson, on the other hand, pretty darn good receiver, in my opinion, and interesting prospect. So there's a lot to be liking about Wilson. I don't know about day 2, though. I don't know. Well, maybe end of the 3rd I could see, but not much earlier than that. I think that there's other bigger needs for the Lions to take a gamble on Wilson, especially other receivers that would be in that same area. I do like Jalen Harrell. He again, good linebacker, somebody that could bring a different dynamic to the Lions. But we'll see, where he ends up. If he, I think he's slotted in the 4th round right now, if memory serves me right. We'll see if he stays there. If he's available later in the round, 5th round even, why not take a shot? I don't know if he's going to last that long. Tell your wife I said that's what's up, Bobby. Appreciate it. We just need to find someone that does a Broncos podcast for you, as long as it's not that one channel that is a fan of every team apparently, and then they do a video for every team. Like that drives me nuts. Like, where's the loyalty? Even when we start hosting, all of the different channels and podcasts through all the different teams, you would only ever see me on a different podcast for a different team as like a guest doing the matchup week. If it's the Lions versus the Broncos, I wouldn't be on there doing Broncos content. I couldn't do it. I would feel dirty about it, I guess. But biggest names for me of the day, though, at the Pro Day is Darius Robinson, of course. But Rook, you guys know that I like me some Rook Ororo from Clemson. And I was shocked to see that he was invited to this Pro Day. Completely shocked. So that tells me what we saw a couple months ago, put out the video. His tape does not lie. And he's a very, very intriguing prospect by the way that he's still a little raw, but he has, the tools. He has the skill set. He's got vicious hands. He's just nasty. I love the way this kid works. Footwork is really good. Pad level could use some help. But go watch the Rook Aurora video that I did a couple months ago, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I would love this kid in the second round. Love him. If you can pick him up towards the end of the second, even at 73, I would take him, a little bit after the second, but we'll see what happens. There's going to be a lot of defensive linemen, defensive end, hybrids like Rook that are going to be coveted in this draft. But I do like the fact that he showed up and was invited to this Pro Day, because it's usually limited to like 24 players or something like that. But Rook is expected to be one of the top interior defensive linemen selected in this draft. He's slated to go in the second round at the moment. The Lions also had a formal meeting with Robinson at the NFL Combine. So this is their second touch. And that means something. So he's a Southfield, Michigan native. Darius Robinson is. He talked about how pumped he was for that meeting at the Combine and how great it would be to play for his hometown team that he grew up cheering for. When Robinson met with the Lions for a formal meeting at the NFL Combine, he said that he was very excited, obviously, to say the least. But this is what he had to say. He said, "My heart was bumping, man. I'm telling you, it was like a dream just to see all the names and faces growing up a Lions fan. That was a great interview." And during his interview at the Combine, Robinson wanted everyone to know just how good he can be. And I love the way, he went down, the path this way, doing his interview process. And what he said here left it wide open for people not to box him in. He said, "I play every position. I can play from a 0 tech to a 9. I'm going to play physical. I'm going to run. I'm going to hit somebody. I can do everything. And I just want an opportunity to put my cleats in the ground and play as fast as I can." Now, the only knock here is he didn't run very fast in the 40, but I think that we could probably all agree, or maybe agree to disagree, but maybe most of us would agree that your playing speed is typically a lot faster than what you're ever going to do at some pajama Olympics. That adrenaline gets running the way that it does. You kick things up a notch or 2 or 3. I think that Darius Robinson played plenty fast. And I think that he's got a great opportunity to be great in Detroit, walking into a defensive line that they've just, put together this offseason. They could be pretty special. It could be one of the best in the league. How do I feel about Darius at 29? Man, I would do it. I would do it. 1,000%. I would do it. Andrew Phillips, Khalif Snob says, Andrew Phillips would be a good cornerback, though he wasn't at a pro day. Yeah, I'll give you the full list here. And I'll come back to the chat here in a few moments. Just give me a couple seconds to get through this. So Robinson has been mocked as high as top 20 in the first round. If the Lions truly value edge position and want to add a dynamic powerhouse in Robinson, they will more than likely have to make a day one move, which would be moving up. And in his final season, Darius Robinson at Missouri racked up 42 tackles, 14 TFLs and 8.5 sacks in just 12 games. So highly productive. Kid's got a frame for days. Like, he's a wide-bodied frame. He's tall. He's got long arms. He's going to still grow into that body. I think that there is a lot, left on the bone here, that's going to come from Darius. Like, this kid's going to grow into something special. He really is. Couple of years inside the NFL, he might be one of the best defensive ends in the league. And I'm not lying. Like, he's got it. He just needs a little bit of coaching will go a long way, they say. Yeah, I mean, the 29's tough, Donovan, but it becomes a point where do you want the guy or not? Like, does it matter if you take him at 40 or 29? I would say that it does, because if you want that fifth year option out of him, you got to take him in the first round. So sometimes you grab the guy that you want, that maybe he needs an extra year to develop or an extra half a season, or you got to think of the roster roulette situation. You've got Aiden Hutchinson sitting there. Are you really going to want to pay this guy $30 million a year in a couple seasons? Do I need to have another guy ready to go just in case we can't make that happen or it doesn't happen? There's a lot of factors. There's a ton of factors that come into play versus just, I want player A versus player B, and player A is projected to the first round. Player B is projected to the second round. Why would I grab player B first? And I would say that there's, 100 questions you could ask yourself as to the reason why it makes sense. So, long answer. I apologize. Complete list, though. We had safety, Jordan Anderson. Offensive lineman, Carson Barnhart. Linebacker, Michael Barrett. Defensive tackle, Judge Culpepper. Quarterback, Theo Day. Defensive back, Josh DeBerry. Wide receiver, Hamza El-Zait. Defensive tackle, James Esther. Cornerback, Kalen Gervin. Outside linebacker, Jalen Harrell. Offensive lineman, Trevor Keegan. Linebacker, Chase Klein. Wide receiver, Tanner New. Cornerback, Chris McDonald. Wide receiver, Trey Mosley, Michigan State. Defensive end, Ovi Ogufu, LSU. Defensive lineman, Rook Ororo, Clemson. Way to throw both of those names next to each other. That's a tough one. Safety, Reggie Pearson. Defensive lineman, Darius Robinson. Defensive tackle, Justin Rogers. DB, Mike Sainristil. And last on the list, wide receiver, Roman Wilson, U of M. So great list, man. Like, super great list. I bet you that I'm going to make a bet here that one of these guys on this list gets drafted. One of these guys gets drafted. And I know that doesn't seem like enough, but I think that one of these guys would get drafted. Might be even two of them. It might be a late round guy in here. There might be. So, all right. With all that said, I still have some other things we can talk about tonight, like Dan Campbell's draft day strategy. Again, this was supposed to be a video, but because, I've had computer issues for a couple of days, technical difficulty seems to be a part of Rocked On Podcast Network over the last couple of months, but pretty soon we will be smooth sailing. No more issues. Let me open up the phone lines. If you guys would like to call in tonight, you guys can talk about, your Lions stuff, what's popping in the news, anything on your mind about the Lions. Jared Goff's extension sounds like it's going to happen. So it's News and Rumors Wednesday. Detroit Lions, NFL, NFC North, whatever you want to talk about. And didn't realize I had 60 different apps open. All right, phone line is on and open. I'll pop the number into the chat. There you go. All right, so let's start with some questions here. Now that I can get into the chat. Better the Hunt. Evening, everybody. Just got done with work. Sounds like a long day for you there, Randy. Donovan Amos, how do I feel about Darius at 29? I answered that one. Brian Welsh says Darius Robinson very much wants to be a Lion, and he's a player. Attitude means a lot. You know what they say? It's if you love what you do, right? It's not work. But could you imagine going to your team that you were, a childhood fan of? Like, it definitely would not be work, right? You'd be so excited every day. We got salty pork chops in the house. No need to apologize. I was late too, to be honest with you. The stream failed. I had to restart it. Let's see. Who else we got in here? The real Brad Holmes. What's happening, man? How you doing? Bobby Tarantino in the house. We have the D-line coach for any prospect we want. Good point. I think the Lions are going to go just as far as the coaches do, to be honest with you. Like, they level up every year. Every year, the Lions have been leveling up. We've had some trial and error. Aubrey Pleasant didn't work out. Dre Bly didn't work out. Every year it seems like we're getting better, though. So we lose a coach, but we get better. All right, we got someone calling in. Give me 1 second. All right, we got our first caller on the line tonight. James, what's happening? How you doing?
What's up, man?
Hey, what's happening?
Well, we were talking about DNs first. I want to talk about just a little bit. DNs. For me, Darius Robinson, I don't think he's first round material. For me, first round pick, I only think there's 3. Latu, Chop, or Verse.
You said Latu, Chop, and Verse?
Yeah.
As defensive ends.
Yeah, I think that's only 3, in my opinion, that's worth it in the first DNs.
Okay.
I wouldn't take Darius.
Really? How come?
Yeah, I think he's too much of a... I compare him to Kaminsky and Pascal. Obviously, I think he's got a higher upside as an edge, but I still think... I don't think he's a true D-end. I don't think he's going to be a true impact on our D-end. I think he's too much of a tweener for us.
So Darius Robinson, let me pull up his measurables real quick. And then just while I'm doing that, I put together, I think you were in the show when I kind of showed you guys my map, if you will, that I'm putting together. I'm putting together all the analytics, height, weights, measurables to create a score.
Yeah.
It's going to take me a few years to really develop it, kind of like what PFF did, but smaller scale until I can find some geniuses to help me. He was the only one. Darius was the most elite athlete out of all of them. Oh, well, I take that back. DJ Turner was the most elite. Darius Robinson was second. Yeah.
But he's slow, I thought.
He is slow. He's very slow, but he's not slow to the point where he can't produce. So the first step is what really matters for a defensive end. And his split was just as good as anybody else. And the thing that we really have to pay attention to is the broad jump and the vertical. If your broad jump and vertical are good, that means that your quads, your get off, you're explosive. That's the only thing that matters is that first yard, man. You got to beat out the tackle or the tight end, and that's it. If you run a 4.6 or 4.7 40, you're still going to get to those quarterbacks because they're running 4.6, 4.7s, the majority of them. It's just beating that tackle, that's all you got to do.
Right.
And then the power, the dude's got crazy power. So he's 6'5".
He is very strong.
Yeah, he's 6'5", 285 and 34.5-inch arms. So he's a tweener when it comes to inside defensive tackle and outside defensive end. He's right in the middle, which is nice because then you can play him up and down the line wherever you want. So it's got that nice position, versatility. But if you're looking for a speed rusher, he's not a speed rusher. He's a solid edge rusher and a defensive tackle and everything in between. He's just not a speed rusher.
My other thing with him, especially in like the first round, like I see, like if we were to draft him, like third down, like in like pass rush situations, and I guess this is where I would kind of say the difference for the three versus this one is, like in third on a passing down, that's where I could see the Lions 90% of the time bringing in James Houston, which yes, that's what James Houston is for.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to get, in my opinion, like Jared Verse, or if you were to get Latu, or if you were to get, I'm not big on Dallas Turner. I know a lot of people is. I'm not. Or like Chop. I don't think you would ever put James Houston in versus those three versus Darius. I guess that would be another way of me looking at it.
So when I think about Darius, what I think about is our run game. First of all, I think that, you have another tweener on the line that can get to the quarterback, but also really good in the run support and stopping the run. I mean, that's our first strategy, is to crush the run. We added DJ Reader. Now think about this for a minute. DJ Reader takes up the most double teams in the NFL, right? Or one of,
yep.
He's one of. So now you have Ali McNeil. When he was getting 50% of the double teams. Now you're adding DJ Reader, and between those two guys, they're going to have to take up a couple of double teams each. You only have so many guys. So either DJ Reader is going to get free or Ali McNeil's going to get free. But if they decide to, bear down on our inside tackles, well, Darius and Hutch or, who's ever in, they're more than likely only going to have a one-on-one or a chip to beat, and that's it.
That's true. That's very true, because you're not going to be able to leave Reader alone.
No, you can't.
He's too big.
And if you left,
he's just too big.
Yeah, and if you left Ali McNeil alone, he would get home. That's why he had 6 sacks last year before he got injured. So that's why I love the Darius Robinson idea, because he can fit from, like he said, from 0 to 9. He can do it all and everything in between. He could come in and drop 10 pounds and get a little bit quicker, but I mean, he's slow. He ran a 4.9 40. Maybe he had a bad day, but it's that first explosive step that I look for, and he has it. And he also has the length in his arms and the power in his arms to be able to bully those tackles and and wrap up a tackler or wrap up a ball carrier at the same time. So he's interesting. I'm not saying he's the end all be all, but he's interesting.
The more I talk to you guys, the more I look into Darius more and more, because a lot of people like Darius. I just haven't been sold on him yet.
What do you think about Marshawn Nealand? Because Marshawn Nealand is kind of in that same, that same boat.
I like him, but I don't. In my personal opinion, I think if we get the DN, it will be in the first round. I don't think we'll get a DN later on. Personally, I know there's a chance, because obviously they've looked at him, they brought him in they used one of their 30 on him. They obviously like him. For me, it's about fit. Like for me, when I'm looking into the second round, I'm thinking personally, I think we're gonna go after. I guess the only way I'd be open to it is if we got a receiver in the first round, and that's why we are going after Nealand in the second. But if we were to get the DN in the first, then obviously we wouldn't get the DN in the second. And I guess it's who else we get, because I think we definitely need to get a guard center. That's a definite need, and that's most likely don't be something we get in the third, maybe at the fourth. No, we don't got a fourth. I doubt they'll get a fifth for a guard. So I think that'll be our third. Our second, I mean, it could be a D end if we got a receiver in the first.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could be that. That's the fun thing about this draft is the Lions have options, right? And the more options you have, the more confusing it gets. But at the end of the day, you have to address who they think. Excuse me, to your point, who is the best fit and the best player available on the board? See, when I look at Marshawn Nealon, and we did, meet with him at the combine. He's got great power, in his legs, obviously with his broad and his vertical, pretty solid. His 40 was, 2/10 of a second faster than Darius, but and he has the same arm length, a little bit smaller hands, and he's 267 pounds and an inch shorter. So he's almost your prototypical size, like perfect prototypical size for a defensive end. My question is, can you trust a smaller school guy to do it? I would say the answer is yes, because we've seen it done. We've seen it done with Max Crosby.
He tore it up in the Shrine Bowl.
And he tore it up at the combine too.
Yeah, but I mean at the Shrine Bowl he was going against Division I competition.
Yeah.
And he tore it up still.
Absolutely. So I just found it kind of interesting that he wasn't part of the pro day. So when I look at the pro day, it makes me wonder, all right, so where are these guys more than likely going to get taken? So if you're in the, pick 60, pick 73, and you still haven't grabbed a defensive end or another backup defensive tackle, and Rook Aurora is there, but everybody else is gone from that board that you liked, like Darius or Nealand. Well, then that means that Rook is probably your guy. So
I would take Rook over Nealon.
I would take Rook over Nealon too, only because he's raw.
So much upside.
Yeah, but that's also means that he's a project.
Yep.
And I don't know that Detroit Lions fans are going to be patient with another project, because we had a project with Derek Barnes, we have a project with Josh Pascal, we've had a project with Levi Onwuzurike, projects and injuries.
But the nice thing with if we were to get D tackle Rook as a project, we got two solid D tackles already playing. I think we'd be able to get away with it more this year because of the DJ Reader pickup. I think we would be able to get away with it more than like when we were using Levi, who was a project because he got hurt. We drafted him knowing that he wouldn't be able to play right away because of his injury, but that impacted us because it was somebody that should have been starting. If we were to get Rook, he wouldn't start anyhow. Yeah, would he be losing some rotation minutes? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But I would be more okay with that than what we did with Levi.
Yeah, Levi, man, it was just been disappointing to, he jumped out with so much promise, and then he just kind of disappeared. And I know you can't do anything about injury, backs are finicky, but what could have been for Levi, because he was already a head scratcher when he was drafted, and nobody really knew who the guy was or why he was being picked up. But hopefully it gets changed this year. So James, appreciate you calling in tonight, and
yes, sir.
We'll catch you on the next one.
Yes, sir. Nice talking to you guys.
All right, buddy. We'll see you, James.
Yes, sir. Later.
All right. No Darius Robinson for James in the first round. I don't know. I still think I would take him. I really do. I think that Darius has got too big of a freakish style of body type that you're just not going to see very often. All right, we got another caller. I'll be right back. All right, we got Donovan Amos on the line. Donovan, what's on your mind, man? What do you think about Darius Robinson in the first?
See, I wasn't even gonna get on today, but like y'all started talking Darius Robinson at 29. I'm like, I don't know about Darius Robinson at 29. I think you need your number one corner. And to be honest, I like Fisk, Braswell. I like Jonah Ellis a lot. I don't think that's the reach at 29 for me. I'm not gonna lie.
So Braswell, second round. Who else did you say? Fisk?
Fisk.
Fisk is Fisk is
Newton.
Fisk is a defensive tackle. Could be an edge, second round. And then Luther Ellis, his son. I don't know about him yet. Like I'm not sold on him yet.
Yeah.
No one has swayed me just yet. I guess the tape hasn't swayed me either. Like I think I think Jonah has some good upside to him. I absolutely do. But when you look at his body size, let me go back to his body size. He's definitely a later round option, in my opinion. Where the heck is he? Here we go. Jonah Ellis, 6'2", 248. He's got 10.5-inch hands, 33-inch arms. So he's good in the hand and the arm department. And I don't know what his 40 and all that is right now, but at 6'2", that just makes me think of another, James Houston type of a speed rusher. And I don't think that we need another speed rusher. I think that we need, unless it's a Chop Robinson, because I think Chop is more than just a speed rusher.
Yeah. I like Adisa Isaac too.
I'd like Adisa. Mm-hmm. I like Isaac.
And it's too many options for you to just reach at 29 like that. You got to get your number one corner for me.
So you're all about taking corner first.
Yeah, because it's harder to find corners. I'm sure Brad Holmes said he played corner, so he's going to be able to get a good cornerback.
Brad Holmes said that he, what did he say? He said that he was, he felt that he was pretty good at, having a good eye for a corner. And that's why, he doesn't take them very often early because he doesn't have the confidence in them. There's a couple you're probably like every year, but you just don't have a shot to get them.
Yeah. And I'm not sure about Marshawn even at 61 either. I don't think he's best player available at 61. And if he about his competition too, he had all them highlights against some Michigan dudes. I don't know how that's gonna translate.
He had all the highlights against who?
Like the Michigan team. He must be in a weaker division.
What do you mean the Michigan teams? You talking about like the Eastern and the Western and yeah. I mean it is a weaker division, of course, but the thing about going up against, man, you don't even want to get me started on weak teams because there's certain players that were chosen, in the top 5 in drafts, but when you look at what they really went up against, easy schedules. Maybe the average 80th ranked offensive lines in the FBS, there's only 130 teams or whatever. So what does that tell you? If you had a defensive end or defensive tackle, outside linebacker, whatever, that is racking up a ton of stats, but yet you've got, a terrible strength of schedule, an easy home schedule, and an 80th ranked offensive line that you're beating up, that. So I guess what I'm saying is there's been players that have been selected top 5 with that kind of background.
Yeah. Yeah, Nealon is a reach at 61 for me too. I think you ain't gonna find like the best edge rusher / defensive tackle ain't gonna be the best player available to like 73, because you got to get your receiver in the second round for you to really hit on a good receiver. I feel like.
Yeah, if they value getting a top tier receiver, they're definitely going to have to do it in the top 45 picks. But that doesn't mean that you can't find somebody later. I mean, it happens all the time. You see players get. I mean, St. Brown is a perfect example. It happens, and sometimes these kids just, they strike gold with the team that they go to, and the system works for them, and the language that they're speaking works for them. The coaching, everything just kind of lines up, and they're able to just take off. The guys that I really like are the guys that maybe are a little bit raw, that haven't gone through it long enough, and you really don't know where they're at, but that they're not at full capacity yet. Those are the guys that should scare you, and they're hard to take. But at the same time, if you do take one, and after year 1, they completely, blow up onto the scene, I would take that all day. But it's hard to project. It's hard to predict.
Yeah, was Puka Nacua taken in the 4th round?
I thought Puka was 6th or 5th or something crazy. He was definitely there after Broderick Martin.
Yeah, we could have drafted him.
Yeah, but come on. See, that was like one of those situations that I was just talking about. Like, nobody knew who Puka Nacua was until Matthew Stafford chucked him the ball 100 times last year.
Yeah.
And
I honestly would prefer a defensive tackle over an edge rusher in this draft, to be honest.
A defensive tackle?
DJ Reader go down. Yeah, a defensive tackle who can play edge, but once DJ Reader go down, you ain't really got nobody. So,
well, I mean, they're probably hoping that Pascal and Levi Onwuzurike are both going to take a step forward in this season and be really high grade backups. See, what I would love to see, honestly, is I would really love to see the Lions have a top tier rotation. Like, when you're rotating guys in, that the play is not falling off. Like, you could rotate a guy in, if you're in a 12, if you got 12 snaps on an offensive drive, you might have to get your guys some rest at some point. Maybe 16 snaps, a real long drive. It would be nice to know that you could send a Lee McNeil out and throw somebody else in, and they got fresh legs and they're ready to just pound it. That's where having great depth really helps this team win more games, because you have to outpace the other team.
Yeah. I mean, if you can get a guy like Darius Robinson at 61, I'm not mad, because he can probably play defensive tackle too. I'm just not sure at 29.
No, Darius Robinson can definitely play inside tackle. You're inside offensive tackle.
Yeah, that's it, bro. I just wanted to come and chop it up.
All right, man. Appreciate it, Donovan.
All right.
See you, man. Donovan Amos says no Darius Robinson in the first round. So who would you take then? So who do you guys want in the first round? I guess would be the question. And I think that the fan base is split big time. You got some people that want a wide receiver. You got some that want a corner, some that want a defensive end, some that want a quarterback. I've seen that rarely, but it's there. I'm not taking a Michael Penix or Bo Nix if they're there at 29. Ain't no way. Unless there wasn't a deal done with Goff, then I probably would. But there's not going to be a deal done. So Braylon Dennis likes Darius, but do you like Darius in the first round? That's the question. No receivers in the first round. All right, so here, I'll throw this one at you, Braylon, because I know it won't happen. So Marvin Harrison Jr. slips to 29. Would you take him? Would you take a receiver then? Because I would. And then I try to trade him. Yeah, I like that take, Peter. Van Larhoven says, if there's a quarterback at 29, we will be trading that pick. I would believe it. I would. I still think that the Lions, if they really want the edge rusher, even if they want the corner that they love the most in this draft, you know, if that's Terrion Arnold, if that's Quinion Mitchell, if it's Kool-Aid McKinstry, if it's Darius Robinson, Chop Robinson, Jared Verse, like I did the other night on Monday's mock draft. Look, I think the Lions need to move up. I think they need to move up into the top, 22-ish or whatever it was, get ahead of the Vikings and don't let them take another player from you. And you take a Jared Verse. Give up a 2025 second round pick to do it. I guess we'll see what happens. So since we're talking about draft strategy a little bit, let's talk about draft strategy. So Dan Campbell, Lions strategy for 2024 NFL draft remains the same. Here, let me do the little segment here. Even though I'm exhausted, I probably won't even cut this up later. Here we go. All right, so Dan Campbell, Lions strategy for 2024 NFL draft remains selecting the best player overall, best player available. The Detroit Lions sit at an unfamiliar spot at pick 29, selecting at the end of the first round for the first time in nearly a decade. The Lions currently hold the number 29 overall pick in the draft, and Detroit hasn't selected in the late 20s since 2015. When they traded down with Denver from 23 to 28 and selected guard Laken Tomlinson. To make that more interesting, though, the Lions have had 2 first-round picks in each of the last 2 drafts and have not made a pick later than pick 18 overall, where they selected Jack Campbell last season. Simply put, in 3 drafts, the Lions have been picking in the top 10. Thanks to the Matthew Stafford trade, Detroit sat with the number 6 pick last season before trading back to number 12 and held its own number 18 selection. The Lions used those first rounders on running back Jahmyr Gibbs and linebacker Jack Campbell. And on draft day, for the lack of positional value, the Lions made it clear that they targeted the players who could contribute off the bat, or as I like to say, off the cuff. They wanted playmakers. They wanted game changers, day one guys. Last year, Brad Holmes wanted 2 impact players to come out of that draft. They got 4. This year, I really think that we are 2 playmakers away from having another really deep season that could end up hoisting a Lombardi. I really believe it. But Dan Campbell had this to say recently about, drafting and teams rosters. He said, every team in this league has warts. It doesn't matter how good you are. You've got areas you're always going to want to be able to improve in. Nobody has a perfect roster. And then he said this, but we are the best we have been in 4 years. And I feel like we've got a lot of those holes filled. And so this kind of feels like the first draft we're going in and we're still best player available. But we've got places taken care of going into the draft, which is pretty cool. And what all he's trying to say there is a lot of holes have been plugged, right? The leaky boat, you got all the little holes spewing water. They've puttied everything. Everything's kind of, ready to go. You can go out fishing, but just not for too long. You'll take in a little bit of water. So they've got it all plugged up. They can still walk into this draft and really grab whoever they want meaning the guys that they feel can help them on day one. And if they can grab 2 more guys in this draft to really help this team get over the hump, I think sky's the limit for 2024 Detroit Lions. I really do. So who do the Lions pick at 29 before? Well, the Lions have picked 29th overall just twice in their team's history. Most notably, the Lions selected Chris Spielman at pick 29 in 1988. He'd spend his first 8 NFL seasons with the Lions, all of which he'd tally over 100 tackles in each season. Spielman finished his rookie campaign with 153 tackles and was second in the AP Press Rookie of the Year voting. Spielman was a 4-time Pro Bowl selection and a 1-time All-Pro as the team's defensive anchor and captain. His best season came in 1994 when he posted 195 tackles. 195 is absolutely asinine. That's just crazy to me. He played his final 2 seasons with the Buffalo Bills, the last of which coming in 1997. He's back with the Lions, obviously, as you guys know, serving as a special assistant to the owner, Sheila Hamp, and CEO of the franchise. Look, Spielman's had a big impact on this team. I would say by far he has probably put the biggest mark on this team by the way that he's been able to implement strategy and identify the areas of the team that really needed help first. And obviously that was in the selection of Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, and helping Sheila Hamp and Rod Wood and all the other players involved to help develop a plan for winning football and think like a football player, act like a football player, build a football program. I think that's just what it all boils down to. If you can do those 3 things really good, you're going to have success at the end of the day. And the Lions are having success in as little as 3 short seasons. It's kind of been awe-inspiring to watch, to be honest with you. And I still think that we have a long way to go. And that's scary to think, because the better this team gets, number one, the harder it's going to be to keep the guys around, because you can't pay everybody. You can't keep them all. But that just means that your window has to be that much shorter. You've got to force the issue to win a championship sooner rather than later. Otherwise, the guys that you're bringing up and putting on the field and spending all this time, money, and energy in are just going to go off to another team and never realize the benefit of all the hard work that they've put in. For me personally, though, I feel like at pick 29, there's probably 3 or 4 identifiable options in this draft that will work for the Lions. I mean, I think it's no different. Working within the construct of BPA, best player available, but with the idea that involves trading, to get what you want, being the top choice, having the willingness to give up future draft capital. I believe that has to be on the plate this year. I don't know if Brad Holmes is going to do it. Nothing really screams out to me that Brad Holmes wants to give up future draft capital, because we know how much he adores and appreciates drafting players. So we'll see what we'll see what he does and see what happens. But I do believe if the Lions truly, want that best edge rusher, they're probably going to be gone before 29. And adding an impact player is a top priority within the first 3 picks. So a trade up makes the most sense. I think that sitting idle at 29, you're probably going to pass up on, the opportunity of a lifetime, with a couple of players, whether that's an offensive tackle, right tackle, left tackle, doesn't matter. There's some great ones in the top of this draft. Jared Verse, another guy I don't think you can pass on if you had the chance. Byron Murphy, even though we don't really need a defensive tackle this year to have an impact, can you really ever say enough is enough? Adding a guy like Byron Murphy could totally change the dynamic of this defense, especially, with where you put him. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But then you got to trade back. I think that a trade back also has its benefits. There is going to be, or there will be, some areas of this draft where the meat of the draft, as I call it, is where a lot of trading can happen, and or a lot more return on investment, better value for the player in the pick spent, in the production that they're going to give you. And that's going to be between, like 35 and 50, 35 and 48. I haven't narrowed it down just yet, but I will on the night before the draft. And we'll just see where it ends up. King SJ says, I could see Holmes kicking the tires on trading up, but I think a trade back is more likely of the two. I think it only makes more sense because why not trade back and gain more draft capital? Maybe some draft capital early in that draft. I would much rather see him go from 29, forgive me, I don't know who's picking where at 35 or 36 or 34, but trading back to somewhere between 34 and 36, you're still going to have an opportunity to get one of the players that you love, but then adding another pick, 15, 20 picks later would be extremely beneficial to this team this year and not having to give up anything to move up. So top of my list, obviously Jared Verse, DJ Turner, Chop Robinson, Darius Robinson, Chris Braswell. They've all been as high as 17 in various mock drafts, whether it's Mel Kiper, Daniel Jeremiah, doesn't matter. Jared Verse and Turner obviously being the two most likely to go in the top 18. I guarantee, though, or to guarantee that you have a shot at a player that you covet, like one of those guys. The Lions they're going to have to get into the top 20, top 18 of this draft. Are they going to do it? I don't know. We'll find out on draft night. We may find out that we're not picking that night. Who knows? Easy does this as cornerbacks are a gamble. Trade back and take a chance on one, maybe two. I've always wondered why, some GMs have an opportunity when they have early picks like let's say Minnesota, if they didn't want a quarterback, why wouldn't you want to take two of the best corners in one draft? Like that seems to make a whole lot more sense to me, because if one doesn't quite work out, you have another one sitting there, that could work out. And then that other guy could slowly develop and be, the player that you want him to be. Just might take him a little bit more, time to do it. So Peter Van Larhoven says, I would love 29 in next year's second for both Giants second round picks. Where are they picking in the second? I don't remember that right offhand here. Peter Van Larhoven says, if you do mocks 33 to 110, are all the same quality of player? Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that between pick 1 and pick 15, that's your top dogs in just about any draft. Depending on the draft and depending on what you need. Lights are killing me. Depending on what you need, you could probably stretch that to 18, pick 1 through 18. So then I feel like from 15 to probably 30, you've got another set of, different level of player. And then from 30 to 45, I think you have another subset of players, then 45 to 55. And then, after 55 or 60, then things kind of start to blend a little bit, in my opinion. 47 is a good pick. I like 47. You have 24 first round grades. Wow. I don't know that I've released all of my first round grades just yet. I'm going to have to add that to next Monday. All right. Well, hey, I know this was a short one tonight, but I am going to be jumping off early. I'm not going to be going until 10 or 10:30 tonight. I've been exhausted. So tonight's going to be an early one. I appreciate you guys joining me tonight. Go ahead and take one more caller right now. If somebody wants to call in, I'll leave the phone open for another 5 minutes. And then we're more than likely going to sign off here. I need to catch up on some Z's and get ready for the morning show tomorrow. I guess if I were to have, a top 18 this year. Let me see. I guess, the quarterbacks always throw it off. Always. So you got Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., Drake May, Malik Neighbors, Joe Alt, Rome Odunze, Brock Bowers. I'm not going to put Cooper in my top 18. Byron Murphy, Quinnen Mitchell. Probably Talis Fuaga and Fontenue. Terrion Arnold, Dallas Turner, Jared Verse. Brian Thomas Jr. It's 15. And you could probably throw Jackson Powers Johnson in there too at 16. And Fashanu, I don't know about Fashanu. We'll go Fashanu at 16. And then I know it probably sounds weird, but I'm going to go ahead and put Kool-Aid McKinstry as my top 18. I think 3 corners would make sense. Yeah, Mike P, the tech issues, man, they'll never be fully gone. It's just the way that it is. Sometimes it's a streaming platform, sometimes it's YouTube, sometimes it's my PC. But now with the new one, hopefully things will start to smooth out by the weekend. So it just takes a little bit of time. That's what makes me unique, James. Got to be crazy in this business. I get them right. That's the one thing that I can at least rest my head on at the end of the day is the crazy ways that I think for some odd reason they work. I get some things right. But that was just top 18. I mean, I could see someone's point here that Full State Farms is 24 first round grades. I could see it. I just don't know if there's 30. That's the thing. I don't really see 30 first round grades, but you'd have to go outside of let's see here. Like Chop Robinson, I think that he's a first round grade. I don't know that he's going to get taken in the first. Darius Robinson, I would say that he's absolutely a first round grade because his body size is it's way too intriguing. Those bodies, like Myles Garrett, they do not come around very often at all. And you got to take them when you can get them. You have to. You got to work on it as best as you can. Might just take a little bit extra time to get him over the hump. Yeah, Ronaldo Green, man, I do like him, Brian. Absolutely. All right. Well, hey, again, appreciate you guys. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Rise and Grind morning show right here on Rocked On Syndicate. And I think we're going to have Eric on in the morning with us at 8 o'clock in the morning and go from there. So we'll see you guys in the morning tomorrow. Appreciate you guys jumping in. More videos coming your way. We're going to get back to it. We're taking a little bit of break, but we gotta rise up and start pushing out the content. All right, you guys, take care. Have a good night. Appreciate you guys as always. Thank you for being the best sponsors and supporters of this channel. Don't forget about the jersey giveaway. We're now doing 4. And this fall, we're going to be doing some jerseys for children's. I'm going to try to work something out in Detroit local area hospitals and try to do something for some, local hospital area over there. I don't know who yet, but terminal children want to bring them a jersey, their favorite player. And we're going to be doing that too. So these giveaways all have a meaning because the better we do, the more we do, the more we can give away and help out future Detroit Lions, or even fans, Detroit Lions fans, these kids that are going through it, bring a smile to their face too. So more information coming on that way later on in the summertime once we get closer to the spring. But something that I was talking about on the last couple of days that I want to make happen. So, all right, you guys, we'll talk to you guys tomorrow morning. Take care. Have a good night.